All right. Hello. This week, we have a very good episode. I get to sit down with Nadav Mer, owner of a local coffee shop, specialty coffee shop, and probably one of the best roasteries in the state of Iowa. So we sit down and we discuss all things coffee, music, social entrepreneuring, kind of the placeholder of local coffee shops. And so this week, as everyone's kind of going through a lot of stuff in our country and in our world, our sponsor is local businesses, particularly local coffee shops. Man, we need to be out there supporting the heart and soul of our local communities, and that is our businesses and our main streets. And so get out, find a cool coffee shop, buy some coffee, get some beans for being cooped up at home, and enjoy some good conversations and check it out. Thanks a lot for listening to the episode. Hope you enjoy it. All right, welcome to the show. I'm here with a new friend, Nadav Mer. We are in Ames, Iowa. Welcome.
The Metropolis.
The Metropolis, yes. And we've been having some fun conversation leading up to this. But remember, so we build vintage 4x4s, and there's like this magical connection between vintage 4x4s and coffee. And I don't know exactly what it is, but it probably has to do with creating an experience. Like vintage 4x4s are so experiential. Like they can, like when you can't really drive it and be anonymous. Like people are like, oh, what's up? They want to talk. And so I've just found that. You got any thoughts on that? Why is coffee such a big part of experiential things?
I think coffee has potential to be kind of a central part of almost any community. Something about coffee brings people together.
Yeah.
And so I don't think your community, right, of the 4x4 enthusiasts, I don't think that's unique. I mean, we see that in all these communities. But it is a way that people can come together. And for me, what I love about coffee is it's the sober way that we get together.
Yeah.
You know, we talked a little bit, as we were chatting before, that I used to be in the live music world and playing shows. And, you know, when you're always drinking with everybody, it's fun. But when I had the choice to be like, what am I going to do at my house? And how do I want to conduct myself socially? For me, it was really important that it be in a sober way, because people are so much more polite. You can get into so many more intellectual conversations. Yeah. You can be a lot more intellectually curious with people. And it's a lot more fun for me. And I still like to go drink. I drink all the time. Yeah. But, you know, on the daily basis, for me, that community, this works for me in that way.
That's good, because there is like a perception that like the pub or the bar is the only place to find, you know, like Cheers, like the only place to find meaningful connection and conversation. So
and people say that our place is like a Cheers bar without the alcohol. Yeah. So it's like people come in all the time, like, hey, Sean, and everybody knows each other. And it's that kind of communal thing.
That's interesting.
And, yeah, it is important. It's nice to have that social connection. And ideally, coffee can be that. And it can be that wherever you are. And it can be that in the subculture too.
And it's definitely growing. So really quick, sorry to just jump in like that. Nadav, so you own a coffee shop here in Ames called Morning Bell.
Yep, Morning Bell Coffee Roasters is the name of our business. So you can see some of the coffee bags around us.
Yeah, we're literally in the roasting room.
You're in the roastery. So we're really a wholesale roaster, and I've been in the wholesale roasting business for many years before I've been in the cafe business. But when we moved to Ames in 2015, we said we're going to have a full-on cafe, and that was my first time opening a cafe. And as you see behind me here, we have the full cafe built out.
Awesome.
And it's really
And what I found is like, I'm really excited to talk to you. You're like an interesting person, so I'm stoked about that. But also you're a business owner, stoked about that. But I'm also like and I've shared this before on the show, like my wife has said for probably 20 years, like my dream in life is to like sit down and have coffee with you and just like in the morning, like part of our routine. But I'm honestly like not really a coffee guy. So like it's probably only been the last 4 years. I don't know why. Like I don't know if it's an acquired taste or I was just being stubborn, but
well, you got a black coffee today.
How does I love it.
Taste?
It tastes amazing. And it's because I was like probably many coffee people, and you've probably seen this tons of times. You start with like a vanilla latte and then, or a mocha, and then like you just start going like, this is way too sweet. And then now you're just getting a latte, and then or a cappuccino, and now I'm just into black coffee or shots of espresso.
And for us, black coffee is really the essence of what we do. That's kind of the typical drink that I want to drink, and that's how we evaluate coffees that we're going to buy.
Yep.
And back historically, when I was just a roaster, for me, always the test, right, of how good a coffee is. You're going to drink black coffee. So we always see that as like the most important drink on the menu, the one that we're
similar to like just like raw espresso, or just like
the espresso too. We're very focused on keeping our espresso dialed in and tuned in and all this stuff. But black coffee, we work meticulously, and we have kind of our own recipe. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit trying to bring out more sweetness in the coffee, and both how we roast it and how we brew it. There's a lot of nerdery that goes into having black coffee our style.
And that's what I noticed first about. So I spend, as many of you know on the show, like probably 3 or 4 years ago, coinciding with my coffee journey, was a discipline, like this habit of, because as an entrepreneur, like my mind's always spinning, I'm always doing stuff, but I said like, I need to calm the storm, and I need to like have a time of focus. And so I'm not one to naturally study or read. So I said, I need to set aside 3 days a week, from 7 to 8:30, just an hour and a half, 3 days a week, where I'm going to go to a coffee shop and just think, read, process, plan, dream, all that kind of stuff. And what happened is connections started coming, which is awesome. But I noticed about your coffee shop.
I was gonna say, which shop do you go to?
Yeah, so I come here like typically
I've
one
seen
day a
you
week.
Here, but where you must have been somewhere else.
I started at DM.
Nice. Well, these guys are all my friends. That's why I'm asking.
And then
Bill Malone is amazing. I don't know if you've met him, the owner of DM.
Yeah,
Fascinating guy.
I've talked to him a couple times.
He should be at the next on the podcast.
Okay, good.
And I always joke that like one of these days I will grow up to be like Bill Malone.
Cool.
That's cool. He's a great guy.
And I a lot of time at Lockwood, kind of like love those people and what they're doing. But what I noticed about when you said nerdery, like you. And this is not disparaging anybody else, but you seem to have the most passion and in like not care, but you care a lot about the coffee. Because there's hierarchies, right? In a coffee shop, you can say we're more about ambiance, we're more about like just a hangout space. And sometimes in coffee shops, for sure, the coffee is incidental to the environment.
And here, the coffee shop is incidental to the wholesale roastery.
Yes.
So that's where the nerdiness kind of comes in, that we are at basis a roastery. So like we do, sample roasting and sample evaluation is a huge part of our work. And that, and that's why our folks that work here, these are also coffee nerds, because they're attracted to an environment where they're going to be challenged in ways that they haven't been challenged in a coffee environment before. So we're always tasting things, and our palates have to be tight, and
it shows. It comes through in the product. Like it's like, and so that's the tough thing for me is like, you meet so many amazing people at all these coffee shops that like, that's why I just bounce around, because it's like, and it's been a way for me to actually get to know the city better, get to know people better.
And everyone has different energy, and it's true. Those communities do exist. And if you talk to Bill Malone from Cafe DM, and they're actually celebrating their 20th birthday, I think it's a week from Saturday, 20 years.
That's impressive.
It's a big deal. So having a big party, I think it's the 26th, if that's the Saturday, or the 28th, that day. But anyway, if you talk to him, he'll say, we have all the same customers. The same people that come in here also go to DM, go to So it's like there's this community of coffee culture people in Ames that go everywhere.
Yeah, and like talking to Sharon from Lockwood the other day. So these are like some of the local coffee shops in Ames.
Ames people.
Yeah. This perspective, someone asked her like, how do you like beat your competition? And she's like, I don't. Like it's not a zero-sum game. Like we're all doing different things, and good. It's all good.
And beyond that, it's, there's the way I see it, there's an ecosystem. Yeah. And as we're dropping all these names and talking about all these Ames-centric places in this podcast that is not for this market, I'll say, I have lived in many places. I grew up in Rhode Island. We lived in Gainesville, Florida for 7 years, had our first roastery there. We lived in Phoenix and now here. So I've really gotten to taste the culture in a lot of different places, which, most people in Ames do get. But Ames is special in that it's a village. So we really have this microcosm vibe. And there's amazing people that live here. And we're lucky to be on that list of best college towns in the country, like Austin and all these great towns everywhere. But Ames really undersells itself, always has. But there's this kind of magic here where there can be this ecosystem. And that's really what's developed with some of these businesses and towns. And, the goal is really that we work together.
Yes.
So like Lockwood Cafe, Sharon, who started Lockwood with her husband, Austin, she used to work here as a barista.
Yep.
And, she always had the dream to open her own place. And, the little bit that we helped, and she helped us a ton too.
Yep.
Just a beautiful thing. And right away when we opened here, she started making our syrups. Because I was such an absolutist that I was like, we're not having syrups. I'm not going to do that. And within 2 weeks, she was making the syrups. And to this day, her business delivers me syrup.
Cool. That's cool.
So it's that kind of ecosystem stuff. And we roast coffee for Lockwood. So we just really see it as an ecosystem where everybody has a part to play. And it's really a growing ecosystem in an entrepreneurial way. There's a lot of dreamers and a lot of folks that work at one of the places that think about opening businesses. And it's amazing. It's really special. Beautiful to be part of that community.
So let's tap into... And we'll bounce around a lot, which is fun. But when you said absolutist, so I think there's a corollary there. How is the purity of your passion for coffee, namely like black coffee? Because in our company, there's definitely like things that I am very passionate and have strong opinions about how to build the right Scout or the right Wagoneer or the right vintage 4x4. And I'm pretty judgmental about other people's work as they are probably to us. That's human nature. And as a creator and a maker, you should be proud of your system and your philosophy. But I often have to compromise because people want certain things. And I do say like, we have to love it. So when I'm talking to a customer, I say, we have to love it as much as you love it.
And it's a hard line to draw.
Yeah.
In
So
any business.
how have you done that? Like,
no, in your business, it's a longer commitment time,
for
right?
sure.
If someone's you're buying a vehicle that they're going to be
up
very
to 2
attached
years,
to.
Yeah.
No, but even when they get it, after they get it, they're going to be attached to it forever. It's going to be something that they love as a special possession. And what I sell is this very temporary experience of something they're going to consume, and then it's gone.
Yes.
And maybe the memory exists, and they'll want to come back and repeat that experience another day. So there's a little different commitment level there, but I totally see the analogy. And here the vibe from the beginning kind of was like, this is the way I like it. So ideally in a coffee space like this, there's going to be one person or a group of people that say, this is the way we like it, and have a very firm grasp of what that is, and then are able to translate that into actual product. Unfortunately, there are plenty of coffee places all over the world where they don't even have a vision to start with.
Right.
So,
well, it's like, the vision maybe is just to have a cool coffee shop.
A cool coffee shop because our neighborhood needs one, or we want to make money. And this is a way that I can make money as an investor. So, it can be, so for me, I have an MBA. I worked corporate for a long time. I'd like to think I know something about money. But I know that money doesn't make me happy.
That's right.
Making more money has no extra happiness gradient for me.
Right.
But having a Cheers bar that I own, where I get to come visit my friends every day, that makes me tremendously happy.
With the man cave in the back,
right? And I get to give my baristas a hard time. So I always joke, this place exists just because it makes me happy.
That's awesome.
And it's fun.
Yeah,
and that's why I do it. And I'm really feel blessed that I'm able to do that.
But how do you talk a little bit more about that? Not compromise, but like, for example, I noticed like when you first opened, when the bar was in the back, I think, am I right? Like you guys didn't have, you do ice drinks? Still no ice. Okay.
No ice.
So for example, a lot of people, that is a principled decision.
Yes. We have a limited menu, and it's kind of like Lockwood too.
Yeah.
If you go to Lockwood, they have amazing crepes. They have South Indian style dosas and a pretty simple coffee menu. And if you want something outside of that, they're going to say, we love you.
Right.
Eat a crepe, have a simple coffee. Right. So it's that focus. And I think folks from outside Ames really get that. That if you're focused on some small menu that's going to be good, right? And it's not going to be spiraling out of control. And I feel like our menu is actually pretty big for what we do.
Right.
But yes, we famously don't offer ice. I don't believe in ice. I don't want to have an ice maker. I don't like the taste of drinks that have ice.
That's interesting.
So it's a personal choice that we will have no ice in the house. We do cold lattes with chilled milk with no ice. The other thing, like famously, also no mixed drinks, blenders, smoothies, none of that stuff. Everything is done by hand. So we have our own craziness, and that's how we kind of see it as like, this is the way we like it.
Yeah, that's special because it expresses your value system. That money, because if it was just money, you would go, because there's tons of college students that love blended drinks, like iced drinks, and
they should go to Cafe Diem or somewhere else. And I'm very quick to say, like, if we're not the shop for you, please, I'll refund your money or give you another drink. But maybe this isn't the place for you.
And I was just at my daughter's high school talking to their econ class, and econ, you know this way better than I do, but the study of human decision making.
Yes.
And we were talking about with the kids just about that niche. Like for us, we primarily build scouts. Through our Anything Scout brand, we only build scouts. And like the amount of people, and we only do them in our way. And the amount of people when I was starting this business that told me this is a terrible idea. Like you can't make money like limiting yourself to like, you should work on Toyotas and Hondas and Chevys and Fords. But it's been a great, I've been like, it's just been a good decision.
So we can
get
into some business stuff then.
Yeah.
I think the opportunities, right? There's always opportunities, unlimited ideas and dreams and opportunities, right? And you can be a naysayer against those opportunities as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And you should be very critical, right? And this is what I often coach when I speak to business classes and all this stuff, is that you should be your own worst critic in terms of what that is.
I like that.
But that's not to say that any of those niche opportunities that on paper sound horrible, that you shouldn't do them. It's the question of where that fits in with your life and how that fits in with your market. And maybe for you, this was a brand extension into that group that you already had a running business, and the cost, right, the marginal cost of getting into that business was not going to be that much. And if nobody bought some scouts, then okay, it was worth trying it out. But for some folks, if they have a huge amount of debt already and they're going into a new business and they have this it's a much more risky bet to start with it.
Right. That's interesting. But just walking that line, I appreciate that. And I think that is a thing that entrepreneurs should be more confident in. Like, this is us. These are our core values. We're going to do it really well and just stick to it and hope it goes in our favor and work our butts off to make it work. And you've been seing that.
Our business is doing very well.
Yeah.
And that's really fun. People come in every day and drink coffee. And that's really all I want. Yeah. It's super fun, but our whole ecosystem is growing. We do a lot of wholesale. The retail can be very busy at times, and life is good.
And I think that's fun for the community as well to have like that, because if all the coffee shops were the same, that'd be boring. But they're pretty different. Like we have a bunch of coffee shops in Ames.
It feels like we have a lot, but if you think about, some of your listeners might be in places like LA. So in LA specifically, there is a whole business that sprung up just to buy the assets of specialty coffee bars that have gone out of business.
Interesting.
So the market there is completely different. It has been oversaturated. And then you have some folks like Go Get 'em Tiger and businesses that are really focused on the bleeding edge of what coffee can be. And they're doing very well and growing. So there's, every market is so different. But one of the things that's different about us, when we moved here, we brought this really big city coffee vibe to this very small town that was full of big city people that had moved from big cities to this town. So we had a market in waiting here that were so excited when we opened.
Yeah, I love it.
Because that was something that they were missing in Ames. And Ames is kind of like that. There's a lot of things we don't have. We're getting our first sushi restaurant.
Really?
So Wasabi good. Down on South 16th is going to be opening anytime. And we're so excited.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, it's such a problem. We got to drive to Des Moines or Ankeny.
Talk to this too. And I want to touch base about a couple other, is there such a thing as a coffee town? Because I've been to, I do want to touch base, wrap around back to Wasabi and some local stuff. But I have a friend in Phoenix, been there a bunch of times. And Phoenix, I feel like is a coffee town. There's some really good, cool.
Press did a huge thing this year, big new place, headquarters with a roastery and cafe, and Cortado is fabulous.
Cool.
And, I really, I was in the coffee business before I was in Phoenix. But
Not with the shop, though.
We had a roastery in Florida.
Okay.
So we sold that in 2013. That was a big win for us. And then my wife got a postdoc in Phoenix. I didn't know whether I was going to stay in the business or not. I could kind of do whatever I wanted to at that point, but I really couldn't stay away. I love the coffee business.
Yep.
So we opened in the Lower Grand Arts District on Grand Avenue in Phoenix.
Okay.
In, I think it was 2012?
A cafe?
No, 2014. We opened Morning Bell in 2014 on Grand Avenue.
I didn't know that.
And we really, it was my next generation. After all the stuff we'd learned in Florida, we opened in Phoenix with all this new knowledge.
That's
and Cartel is a fabulous example of what specialty coffee can be, and they've grown a lot. I know they now have a shop in Austin and Palm Springs, and they've really become a larger regional player. But then there's places like Futuro. I think that's how they pronounce it. I don't even know, but I've seen them on the list of like amazing new experiential coffee places in downtown Phoenix, and it looks amazing. So that's Phoenix is a nerdy coffee town, and there's a lot of different things happening in Phoenix.
And that's an interesting thing, like, because I was in Columbus. In Columbus, Ohio, you don't think of as like a hip city per se, but like just some amazing specialty coffee shops. And that's always like, to me, it's like almost like an indicator of the well-being of the town, is like if they start getting these like, I like how you said that, specialty coffee, not just okay. So this brings me to my next topic, not to be because I know you're a team guy and positive, but I was what do you think about, because one thing I think Ames that bums me out about Ames is the amount of, and why, like a place like your place, Morning Bell, is like a beacon of hope for the entrepreneur, and like culture, creating culture, is like the vastness of a chain.
It feels like that.
Yeah, like
it does feel like that in Ames, doesn't it?
Yeah, like, but all the new, like, as if like, oh, like the new stuff. Oh, we got Five Guys, we got Scooter's Coffee, like we got all these chains that just like prey on a place like this because it's almost easy money because it's college town and it's.
There's some interesting dynamics in Ames. I think locally, the big thing that's hard for, again, people from outside to understand, that I really understand well now after having lived here a few years, is so Ames is like New York City for every Iowa farm kid.
Interesting.
So they will move here from all these small towns that have 500 or 5,000 people, and they've never lived in a town that has a chain restaurant. Yeah,
which is very unique about Iowa.
Yes.
And maybe the Midwest is like, and for just to put it in perspective for the listeners, like, Ames is about what, 60,000, 70?
We have about 30,000 people plus 30,000 students.
Yes, like 60,000, but it's a town of, it's
a town of 30,000.
But it's got more resource than a town of 30,000.
And it's a regional hub. So you have all these people that drive from pretty big cities like Mason City, Fort Dodge, that are almost properly big cities, but they have none of the cultural cred that Ames has, because we have the university and all this kind of funky stuff happening here. So they will drive an hour and a half to get to a Target. And we have the Target.
That's right. And also what you mentioned earlier, we're surrounded. If you go 10 miles any direction outside of Ames, except for even south, kind of, like there's the Ames to Des Moines corridor, and like think about how like Ankeny's bigger. But
Ankeny is growing like crazy.
But Ames has way more culture.
And even compared to Des Moines, and that's one of the things is, we have a lot of friends that live in Des Moines, and we always joke that, you could ask Sharon about this too. It's a joke about what happens to faculty members at ISU if they move take a job at ISU. If they choose to live in Des Moines, there's like 3 outcomes that happen. Either they leave and move somewhere else completely, or they move to Ames, or they get divorced. Those are the 3 outcomes that happen. Because Des Moines is not the kind of inclusive city and in a funky way that the way Ames is becoming. And it's really hard to make community there, whereas in Ames, all these professorial folks are here and they miss their family. They're looking for community and they want to build it together.
Interesting.
So we have this vibe where all these folks, it's a party. People are wanting to build community here.
Yeah,
and that's a different feeling than a lot of other places. And even though Des Moines on the surface has this huge list of all these it's a much bigger city.
Right.
Ames, we are definitely the funkier, smaller place in a way.
So what do you, not how do you fight it, but like, I don't know. It just kind of like
the chains bum you out.
The chains bum me out.
For me, I see it as it's just a sign of growth.
Okay.
So there's an ecosystem. Like a city is going to have all those layers, all those individual experiences available to it. It's the question of where are we going to be spending our money? What are we going to be trying to enhance it? And how will we do that? So I think chains, there's more. We lived in Gainesville, Florida for years.
Yeah.
A lot like Ames, but really the future maybe of what Ames will be in 20, 30 years. Because they've had the chain, they have a whole area just full of chains. And then they have amazing other areas that are completely independent and lots of funky things happening.
Yeah.
So I think there's room that just shows that the waters are rising. The market is getting bigger,
right.
And there's going to be more room for all sorts of other cool things happening. But we're excited about what's coming.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important the ways that entrepreneurs and local entrepreneurs can connect around encouraging entrepreneurship, encouraging local business ownership, encouraging culture has to be done. Because there are definitely some communities where the chains win out. And you might have one or two local cool businesses, but they're
chains
just
left
these
the market was too soft.
I don't know. No. Where the chains went out. And the whole town is just strip malls of
just
of chains.
Yeah, but I don't think we're in danger of that.
No. I don't either.
Yeah. But that exists.
But the city, I don't know if the city has a hand in encouraging it or not. Probably not. But it's something to be cognizant of, and at least of motivation to continue to fuel the way entrepreneurs.
I see the kind of stuff that is happening that's cool here, though, is it's fueled by often people coming in from the outside. The people from the old school in Ames is very supportive of it, and they love it. And we always tend to joke that Ames is very high on financing. We have lots of money for any cool projects that we want to do, but severely lacking in vision and dreams, and it's tough to change the status quo and talk about ideas.
Yeah.
And I talk to the Main Street Coalition all the time, as much as they will listen to me in the Chamber of Commerce, and I say, please close Main Street, at least for half the year.
Yep.
And they say, how can you do that? We have all these shop owners yelling about parking. And I say, my people don't park. And if they do park, they don't mind walking a block. And so I really see it in a different way than the way a lot of people see it. We had a big fracas here downtown about a year ago about parking. They doubled the parking rates to 50 cents an hour.
Yeah.
And the parking tickets here are still $5.
Yeah.
Any other city you go to, there's a parking ticket for $5. It's can I park for $5? This is amazing. So if people come from out of town and they're all worried about the meter, I say, it's okay, because if you get a parking ticket, it's $5 and you can pay online anytime later.
Right.
Nobody's going to care, and it's oh, awesome. Let's wait and get a ticket. So there was such an uproar here about doubling those meter fees.
Yeah.
And I say, I think it should be 3 times that much. I think it should be $4 an hour to park here.
Yeah.
And people just look at me like I'm from the moon. So my ideas about where Ames is and where it's going are a little bit different than how
that's a great conversation. Because you look at one of the famous kind of pedestrian malls, they call it, like 6th Street in Denver.
Yes.
Where it's just they closed that street. I think there's a trolley that passes through. But it's opened up all these other opportunities for businesses, little pop-ups and
Boulder, Iowa City.
Yeah, similar.
So many places, and that's the future, right? That's what's going to happen here. We have an amazing spot for it on Main Street.
So the kickback is essentially just gonna some of the businesses that rely on convenience.
They're very vocal, that they have, Iowa, we have some older population, right? And they like to spend money. And if you have a jewelry store where there's going to be a very high value transaction and you're putting up a barrier to a business owner having their customer come in, right?
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. So I think there's collaborative ways to get around, because we have in our Main Street, there is parking on either side.
Of parking, yeah. So we'll see what happens. But it's those kind of ideas that we need to go in that direction.
That's good. So what was your, so did you have the cafe space as part of opening the shop in Ames? Was that a part of the original design?
So when we moved to Ames, we said, all right, I'm ready. We're going to buy a building and we're going to open a cafe. And I'm going to have employees for the first time.
Okay.
And I'm going to do my wholesale roasted coffee thing. And at that time, we were still shipping quite a bit of coffee to Phoenix.
Yeah.
And that was a whole process to kind of keep alive during that time. We have kind of lost all our wholesale accounts in Phoenix, but we do a lot of retail in Phoenix. So we still ship quite a bit to Phoenix every week. But when we opened here, it was we don't know how it's going to go. There's no place in Ames doing what we do.
Right.
And Horizon Line hadn't opened in Des Moines yet. There's Iowa in 2015 was completely devoid of specialty coffee.
Horizon Line, they're California folks, aren't they?
So it's 2 young guys from LA that opened Horizon Line. And you would love to go meet them too.
I got
really
my daughters have met them and they're like, this place is cool.
It's very hip. And again, I'm old, right? I'm 41 years old. I am not hip, but the coffee industry is very young and hip. And I'm definitely a dinosaur in the industry. But when we moved here, it was all right, this doesn't exist here. We don't know if there's a market for it or not. So I'm not going to open big. We're going to open small. So we were able to get this commercial building, and in Ames, it's like incredibly hard to buy a building. We really lucked out to be able to buy this building.
That's awesome.
We had a salon tenant in here for many years that had been a tenant in this building for like 15 years before we bought it.
A lot of salons downtown.
They call it Salon Row for a reason. So so there was a salon. They were great tenants. And we kind of opened very small in the back in a 700 square foot space where we had our little cafe and roastery. And, we really did that for about as long as we could. And about a year ago, we did a big renovation to the building and expanded to take over the whole space. We really tried to be as gentle and nice to those tenants as we could because they really became our friends. We said you can either leave early, leave late, no penalties. Like, I just want to take care of you before we even do any renovations. And that really opened the door for them to find a great space on Kellogg that was ready and vacated a salon space that they could jump right into. So they were super happy. And we let them out of their lease early, and we still see them, and amazing people. It's called Star Salon. Should go check them out too. But and then when we did this renovation, it was like a different business. It's just a change, because before you used to have to walk down this long hallway, and no signs, of course, because this is part of the ethos. You can't, no advertising, no signs.
And I'm with you, bro. Like we still to this day, we've been in our building for over 10 years. We still have no signage.
And I think that's the way to do it.
I don't know.
That is the way to do it. But we have a sign, on the street, little A-frame sign that says coffee or whatever self-deprecating joke we want to put out there that day. Is the way it used to be. And then people would like open the door and look down this long hallway and see nothing. It'd be like, is there a coffee shop back there? Kind of vibe. And then they'd get in and it would open up, and our little space with lots of light and our little coffee shop. That's awesome. It's really grown from there.
So as a roaster, this is something I know nothing about. You hear about ethically sourced coffee or sustainable coffee. Kind of educate us a little bit about that world. How did you, maybe generally about that, the world of coffee sourcing, and then how you have particularly integrated that into your practice.
Excuse me. So the sourcing thing, it's crazy. And when we started roasting in 2011 in Gainesville, Florida, the other big roaster in town at that time was Fair Trade Organic certified. So when we started, I said, I also have to be Fair Trade Organic. Like I can't come in and be like, I don't care about this at all from a business perspective, but also ethically, like I felt that, and I feel like that's an important thing. So, it's been a bit of a journey to figure out how that happened. So we started. You just
had to educate yourself.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, we started sourcing coffee, learning about coffee. Right, in our first business, I didn't know anything about it, completely self-taught. But then by the time we sold that business in 2013, I really had learned a lot about Fair Trade Organic coffees. And the big thing is, Fair Trade Organic coffees obviously support farmers in great ways. They don't have to live with pesticides often. They're often communal groups, but it's kind of a hierarchical thing where we force that communal group, that type of group on these folks politically, which is tough. But it's a way that they can make more money to sell their coffee. And I think that's vitally important. So to this day, we are the only Fair Trade certified coffee roaster in Iowa.
Wow.
We are
that's awesome.
Involved with that program, and we buy quite a bit of Fair Trade certified coffee. When we left Florida and got to Phoenix, it was like, all right, I want to buy Brazils. Because at that point, there were literally no Fair Trade Organic Brazils. And even now, it's
what does that mean, Brazils? Like just
coffee from Brazil.
From Brazil.
I love coffees from Brazil. So the coffee that you've been drinking today, this is
really good.
So this is a Rainforest Alliance certified coffee. So we don't have that certification as an organization, so I can't put that on the bag. But this one is also family direct. We buy from the family of Jose Luis Oliveira, these green bags that you see here. And they keep inviting us down to the farm. I thought this was going to be the year that I was going to go this summer, but with the virus, nobody's going anywhere. But they do amazing stuff, and it's a family-to-family connection.
That's awesome.
So we can buy right from them. We have another similar connection with a family in Nicaragua that we just got a bunch of new bags from this week that we buy right from that family. That's actually my first coffee supplier. When we started in Florida, they were the first guys that I ever bought green coffee from.
Help us understand that. Are you ordering, do you order from a trade organization?
So in this case, those two cases, I buy right from the family. So they either contract warehousing or they own the warehousing. And they bring the coffee to the States, and I can get it directly from them.
That is so cool, man.
And it's amazing. It's really hard to forge those relationships. It's really hard to find those with the quality that we like. But these are the two that we've been able to maintain over several years. And this year, I think it's the fourth crop year we're getting from Jose Oliveira's family. And I think, this is going to be the 9th year of Selva Negra coffee. amazing.
Yeah.
So that's really special. But we also buy quite a bit of fair trade organic certified coffee that we sell, namely at Wheatsfield. And I really credit Wheatsfield for being a hub for a lot of the earthy, crunchy stuff in town. And when we got to town and we said, hey, we want to sell coffee.
In just context,
Wheatsfield is our local grocery, earthy, crunchy co-op grocery. And it's awesome. They have a food bar. They serve our espresso at their espresso bar.
Awesome.
It's a great grocery store. And it really is a hub for all the earthy, crunchy downtown stuff. And continues to be more and more so as time goes on. So I really credit them for when we came to town being like, you should see if you can get certified. Like, we would like you to be certified. And that really pushed me to get certified at that point. And we've been able to keep that going since then so that we can put that fair trade sticker on our bags.
And what is that certification process?
It's actually not that big of a deal.
Okay.
But there's a few things that auditing wise, and it's one more layer of work. And we've looked at other certifications that we can add, such as Rainforest Alliance, and Smithsonian Bird Friendly is one that we're kind of looking at again just this week because they got back in touch with us. So Selva Negra Coffee in particular carries this Smithsonian Bird Friendly Alliance certification, which is awesome, and through the Smithsonian in DC. And very few roasters, very few growers in the world are involved with that, but it's really with a focus on birds. So we get into all this nerdery, and my wife is a wildlife ecologist by training.
Okay, awesome.
And works in the environmental world often with her communications work, and so for us, it's very important.
How has that shifted? Because when I was growing up and you were growing up, we both grew up on the East Coast, Rhode Island, Connecticut.
Except for we hate Connecticut. If you ask anyone, we'll talk all about that.
That's funny because
I like people from Connecticut, but we don't really accept Connecticut as a concept.
As a concept, because Connecticut is like a bedroom community for people that work in New York.
Rhode Islanders hate everybody, especially massholes, as we call them, people from Massachusetts. Because I grew up you could literally throw a rock to Massachusetts, but you can't accept those Massachusetts people.
How funny.
But Connecticut was like a special level of hate for people from
That's
Connecticut.
Because we were talking, I have such fond memories of Rhode Island as a little kid going to the beach. That's where you can go to the Atlantic Ocean. Because Connecticut is on the Sound. So our beaches were all on Long Island Sound.
Thousand Lakes, or not the lakes, the islands, Thousand Islands, or the little islands, Finger Islands, what do they call them off the coast? Yeah, on the Sound.
But in Milford and Bridgeport, there was all these beaches that my grandfather grew up chilling on.
Waves.
No waves. No. But fresh off the boat from Poland, post World War II, he was just stoked on walking the beach. This business cash,
awesome.
It is awesome, and walking to the bakery, and this kind of brings it in to. I don't remember seeing coffee shops as a kid. What I remember is diners. My dad, my parents were big coffee drinkers, and they would get their Folgers. And
coffee culture has changed a lot.
Yeah, so
everywhere.
has that? Were there coffee shops, and I just wasn't aware of them?
It's really interesting. In Rhode Island, we have a couple interesting coffee traditions, and I can probably directly blame my love for coffee on Autocrat coffee syrup.
Okay.
So Rhode Island is famous for having the only large manufacturer of coffee syrup, flavored coffee syrup.
Okay.
And all kids in Rhode Island in school are given not 2 choices, but 3 choices. Regular milk, chocolate milk, and coffee milk.
No way.
So, and
cool.
Also we have Dunkin Donuts is a huge presence and has been for a long time in Rhode Island.
Taking over the world, dude.
And in Pawtucket, when I was growing up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, we famously had more donut shops per capita than anywhere else in the world.
Wow.
But it was all Dunkin Donuts and Tim Hortons and all these chains. But I really credit Coffee Exchange in Wickeden Street, Providence, Rhode Island, for getting me into coffee. And I see those guys when I go to the Specialty Coffee Association conference, and always blame them. Yeah.
That was a local coffee shop.
So they are really the originator, one of the first in the world of this model called the roaster retailer model, where they roast coffee, will sell it wholesale, and also have a coffee shop where they serve the coffee.
Back in the 80s.
And so they started in the early 80s or late 70s.
That's cool, man.
And it's still family run, and it's... and it used to be the hangout. So I would go there and just see my friends. It was kind of the Cheers bar thing. And in so many ways, that was my model for what a coffee shop could be. Maybe not so much on the palate side later,
right?
But in the beginning, definitely yes.
Was that from where did that, is that European kind of influence?
I don't know. Charlie Fishbin is the guy's name that he runs it. And I don't know where he got the idea to do it.
It's pretty cool.
There's some interesting folks that were very influential in the beginning, but it's still around. And when you go to Rhode Island, go check out Coffee Exchange. And it's
sure, dude.
And so many of the things that, for me, when I set up my business here that were important to me, and one of the big things is when you go to Coffee Exchange, it's hard to park. You're in
Yeah.
the, it's in an area right next to Brown University, Rhode Island School of Design.
Okay.
There's nowhere to park. And then once you park and you fight for that parking spot, then you're going to have to schlep and walk all the way out to where the shop is. And then when you get there, you're probably going to have to stand in line, possibly outside in the winter, to actually get a cup of coffee, only served in a to-go cup, no for here, anything.
That's awesome.
And the other part that's interesting, so they only do coffee, right? They have a roastery, they serve coffee. They don't make any food in-house. But Providence has this amazing food culture in Johnson, Wales, where all of these wholesale bakeries have existed and do exist. So they have an amazing selection of scones, cookies, whatever, that they could just bring in. So my model always, when in Phoenix and here, was like, I'll buy whatever baked goods people can bring me to buy.
Right.
So of course we get to Ames and it's like, all right, people, please bring me a croissant. I want a nice French croissant with like artichoke and feta with a sprig of fresh rosemary on it broiled that I can sell out in the shop. And people, it's like people's eyes glaze over. Yeah. It's like, no, we have the cafe in town, okay?
Which makes awesome
Makes
baked goods.
amazing croissants, the best in Iowa. They will not wholesale even to their ownership group. There's like Mods wants to sell them, and they own part of the cafe. They won't even sell them to Mods. So, there's no wholesale bakeries. So folks who are listening, other places, Ames has unlimited potential for all these businesses. Yeah. There are no wholesale bakeries here, people. I need like a French pastry chef to come here, and Des Moines doesn't have one either.
That is interesting. That's like, I have a friend that has a business down here, deli, and they buy from Hy-Vee, which is like it's not a bad thing, but it's just sad that there's no other option.
Of wholesale baking here, so that's really
which is an East Coast. Like I'm so grateful to grow up in the East Coast. Like bakeries were such a big part of the culture. Like my grandparents would walk in their little kind of Polish community. There was a bakery. Oh, there's Anchors, and like you go to New Hampshire, Maine, Portland, Maine. There's just amazing
and different
bakeries.
cultural bakeries, right? You can have Italian bakeries, and I grew up with a lot of Portuguese bakeries in southern New England.
That was my first job, dude, at a Portuguese bakery.
Really, dude, I'm all about the custards.
It's so good.
You know what I'm talking about? The little custard?
Yeah,
that's my jam.
Those Portuguese rolls, those are so good.
So those are a lot of cultural touch points for me.
So that's interesting, because I remember I moved to California 18 years old, 1992, end of 1992, graduated high school. That fall, I was moved out to California on a whim. And that was like kind of the birth of the grunge culture. And I remember my first coffee shop, there's a place in Sunnyvale, California called the Coffee Society. And it was just like, we're all like it looked like a Nirvana hangout. Like it's just all that culture. And it was just like very eye opening to me coming from Connecticut, which is kind of like probably the stereotypes were probably true, like very preppy. I don't know, I was into a lot of stuff, but like coming to California, that was like the kind of West Coast influence of Seattle flowing down into like Northern California was very eye opening. And like this coffee shop, and it still sticks with me. Like there's a pretty profound, like this, but this is what's interesting is it was an alternative culture. The coffee shop was not mainstream, and they probably prided themselves on like not being mainstream. But now coffee is, which I think is awesome because there's so many good things about it. But it's way more mainstream.
Yeah, and there, you think back to when we remember when there was no Starbucks.
Yeah,
anywhere.
exactly.
So as a specialty coffee community, we look at all these small roasteries and coffee shops that exist now all over the place. We really have Starbucks to thank as an industry.
I agree
that they make it possible for people to understand what a latte is and why it should cost $5.
Yep, that's right.
And just that did not exist before that.
That's interesting. Yeah, because my parents, for sure, it was just. It was just probably not as good.
Yeah, but basic black coffee, or diner style coffee.
Yeah, and like, how good is the East Coast diner scene?
I think it's still open in Pawtucket. We had Shannon's was the diner, and it would open night for the bars, maybe like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and it was $1 a plate with coffee. The eggs and hash browns and toast, and they would stay open the whole night after the bars would close.
Most diners do.
And then they would stay open and through the brunch kind of hour until 1 or 2 o'clock, and then they would close for a few hours. And it was, we would get sick. You go eat there, you'd definitely be sick sometimes.
Yeah, and like in Connecticut, there's a lot of Greek diners.
Yeah, the Greek diner thing,
What is that?
So we didn't quite get those as much in Rhode Island, but it's a New York, New Jersey, Connecticut thing, and the Greek diner thing is amazing.
If you're like just thinking about, if you haven't spent time in the Northeast, you got it. It's such a magical place. It's such an interesting, I find, like they get a bad rap. Like at the DMV in Nevada, there's a woman that works there that's from Long Island.
Really?
And Just going there, like we instantly hit it off. Just like, oh yeah, like there's just a vibe from like the Northeast.
So here's a Northeast thing. So in Rhode Island, the DMV is so atrocious. Legendarily, you have to take a day off work to go
really?
there. There's public like services, businesses where you can hire someone to wait in line for you.
Oh man,
and send you a text
hilarious.
when it's ready. So when we moved to Ames, my mom drove with me here. You know, my parents still live in Rhode Island, and my mom, you know, always would schlep with me and whatever when we would move. And so she came with me, and we had to register the car. So we walked into Nevada. And our DMV here in Iowa, and there was literally one person in there who was just finishing, and we just walked right up, and my mom was like shocked / scandalized that this could exist anywhere in the world where the DMV was not like a dedicated thing.
And then moving to California, because Connecticut DMV was actually pretty easy, but California DMV a whole nother world, dude. It's an all day experience and very frustrating because there's so much bureaucracy that it's overwhelming.
Cali has some different special things.
Yeah,
yes.
for sure. Okay, so let's. What went into like? I noticed you have an interesting espresso machine.
Okay. We can talk
like,
about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like, what was the?
We do lever style espresso. So you know, it was kind of. We had another machine when we first opened here, but then we heard about this guy, Todd Millar, that he was building this handmade espresso machine in Washington. Wow. And there was a story about him in the Daily Coffee Review, which is one of the coffee press outlets that I really like. It's part of Roast Magazine. So they had a nice story about this dude that he's like, had this vision for what espresso could be, and he was building coffee carts in Seattle back in the 80s and 90s and doing espresso repair.
Wow.
And he said, I'm going to build a machine that's supposed to last 100 years. All the seals are, replaceable. So it's Pull Luxury Espresso is his brand.
That's his brand.
And since then, he has stopped selling them to the public.
Wow.
He's a roaster, and he will sell them to his roasted coffee customers at this point, but to nobody else. And Sharon at Lockwood kind of fell in love with the machine when she worked on it here too. So she bought one while she could.
Yes.
But she has some other social connection with Todd that she knows him from before. Okay. They have common friends from Colorado.
Yeah.
But it's this very incestuous thing with him where like we're one of the I don't know how many are out there. It's like in the dozens. But
what is special about it? So it's
all handmade out of 100% Italian parts, handmade in Washington State, walnut case, handmade by Todd.
Yep.
And the goal with this is extremely simple extraction, kind of like the old style Italian extraction, and it's very gentle. And this is what we go for, is very sweet, gentle espresso.
So a traditional espresso machine works off of steam pressure?
Yeah, so it's a boiler, so there is pressure that's created, and what's different about the lever versus some of the other machines that you'll see that have buttons, he has fascinating stuff, but basically there's thermal stability element to it, there's a flow element to it, the pre-infusion is very important. There's a lot of this nerdery that we get into but why this machine is good. And the lever, we find, is just a gentler vibe and a gentler way. So it's kind of like a piston. So you think about the engine analogy. So it's like you're opening, when you pull the lever down, you're pulling up the camshaft or the piston into your chamber, and then that's filling up with water.
Yep.
And then as the lever then is let go, there's a spring that actually pressures it down.
Oh, interesting.
So it's all mechanical. There's actually no motors, computers, or anything in there.
It.
So it's all mechanically then pushing that through the piston.
So does it have a plug?
It's electric because for the boiler. But everything else is very simple. So it's got a heating element. And that's kind of the goal with it, is that the parts are really simple. It's easy to work on. And, a lot of espresso machines these days, they're very technologically heavy. We get the reps from La Marzocca and all these nice espresso machine manufacturers will roll through. And we have these great conversations with them. And I see them at the Specialty Coffee Conference and get to see their new machines. And you pull out the tray where the water goes, like underneath the drain tray. Pull that out. And it's a computer. It's all wires. And it's like, how is this good? It's like... When these seals break and the water goes in there, this is not good. And the best joke about it, though, is all those machines, the profile, like the recipe that they go for, that they like the best, mimics this type of machine.
And it's just like, it's a connection point. We talk about this all the time. Like, you get connected to the machine, and when it's just like autonomous and just like pressing the button, we even talk about the joy of driving. Like, there's something about driving that is very... Like, think of when you're 16, and we used to start this segment, I probably should ask you, just, do you remember back to, like, being 16 and, like, that sense of, like, what did it mean to get your license?
Man, in our generation, and my parents, we moved to kind of a suburban area called Lincoln, Rhode Island for high school for me, and it was really tough to escape out of there. Yeah. And having the car was like...
Going to the beach, dude. Like, think of so many good memories.
I have a lot of random memories. And my first car was a 1984 Toyota van one of the ones with a flat front.
Really?
You know?
That's awesome, dude.
And
Those are
that was
sweet.
the party van, you know, and we would do a lot. There were
How'd
a lot
you
of
come
stories
across
with it.
that?
So it was from my parents.
Okay.
And, you know, so that was the first car that I had.
Is it a Previa?
No, this was before when it was
Okay.
just Toyota van.
This is called Toyota van.
So you would sit on the engine. And I remember
That's
you'd have to
awesome.
put oil in it. Like to get to the engine, you'd have to lift the front seat up, had this
Yeah.
like lever, and you'd have to put oil in it. And
That's
I'd
so
know
fresh.
that it would need oil when it would smoke, visibly smoke off the thing. You know, so this is Rhode Island, you know, there's a lot
Yeah.
of fun cars. And I can think back to some cars that I had. I had like also like 1982 Nissan truck with no power steering.
Super cool.
That was super cool. You know,
that
stick
stuff's
shift.
so hot right now.
It was awesome, and that was a crazy car. And an '84 Celica that I remember I'd have to put like
Great ride.
power steering fluid in every time you drove it. It'd be like, wait, we're gonna drive somewhere? Pop the hood, put in power steering fluid, and so
It's good times, man.
Rhode Island has some interesting car culture stuff, but
Yeah.
a lot of Toyotas, and like especially in Central Falls, famously as like every old Toyota in New England is still
Yeah.
alive in Central Falls.
And
Rhode
what's
Island.
crazy is our generation is like I have it's a little car collection of like 80s kind of quirky turbo cars, like these American turbo cars that were like
Interesting.
where people just they're so weird and they're not great vehicles, but they were just experimental and they're just kind of
Rotary
cool.
engine and all
yeah,
that.
like the old Mazdas. Yeah, like that stuff's really cool. Okay, so what? Let's do this. That I'm still down with that machine. That's
Yeah.
a cool machine.
Yeah, and I think it goes to our ethos of being very analog, no computers, and that just kind of pervades that we're palate-led, palate-driven.
Yeah.
So my goal is to make the coffee taste good, and part of that is the wabi-sabi, a little bit the West Coast, Hawaii vibe of like, I want a little bit of chaos in there. I don't want it to be like so rigid that I'm measuring it all the time, and if it's a little bit off, we'll taste it, and we'll fix it.
And it forces your baristas to be in tune as well. Because like at McDonald's, you just like there's machine. Are there like many coffee shops that have fully automatic
There's
machines?
a whole world of fully automatic machines out there, and they're amazing because they break constantly.
Yeah.
So that's like the best
Right.
thing is like it's so hard to keep those things tuned up. And here, at least you have the pieces kind of separated out. You can have a chance to touch it and know what's going on.
It just seems like, just like with our trucks, like the soul of the barista and that connection it has to come through. I know it comes through because you can taste it. Like, I appreciate that. That's pretty cool, man.
You know, and it's experiential too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, here when you come into my shop, right? And this was part of the idea of having a coffee shop for us in the first place. When I was just doing wholesale, you know, I could give people a taste of my beans, right? I would do all farmers markets. People would taste a little taste of my coffee, you know, maybe buy a bottle of cold brew. But when they come into the shop, you're giving them a whole experiential experience of your brand, right? And that's something that you're kind of missing, where nobody can walk in, right? And
we're growing that.
You know,
Like,
if you have
we're
a showroom
thinking
where
about
people can, but like imagine like that's the vision of this.
That's right.
You know, it's like people are going to come in and smell, see, taste, sit, like talk, have
that's
like,
important,
so
man.
all those touch points, we thought about those and we think about those constantly. And, you know, like it's super important that my baristas are friendly.
Yeah.
And chatty sometimes.
They are.
I would
They're
rather
great.
have them chatty and, you know, really making connections with people.
That was honestly as being like someone that wasn't like really in tune with good coffee at the time, that friendliness was one of the first things I've experienced about your brand. Was like, these people are so nice. Like, and what's this is so important about you guys is because oftentimes the more you care about the craft, the more disparaging you are to those that aren't.
Pretentiousness. I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially coffee is famous for being pretentious and exclusionary.
Yes.
And people that don't know what, you know, they're made to feel bad at the ordering counter and all this kind of
hate
stuff.
that.
I hate that too.
I hate that.
And the other thing I hate is menu boards.
Yeah.
So if you see our design,
Right.
0 menu boards,
Okay.
no words. There is a menu now.
Yeah.
When we opened, there was no menu.
That's so
You would walk up,
interesting.
it was only the barista would talk to you. And it took
That's
this
interesting,
iteration.
man.
Because, you know, for me, I hate that. Even as a coffee professional, when I walk into a new shop and the menu board like just blinds me.
Yeah.
And it's not fun.
That's
it's not
interesting.
a warm thing.
I never thought about that. But that forcing there to be this interchange and exchange between human beings and like education.
But also,
and all-
that's our chance not
That's
to be
cool, man.
pretentious and
Yeah.
welcome them in and say, Sean, I love your shirt, dude.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
are you doing? You
yeah.
know? And just to be able to have those
That's
good
neat.
moments where we welcome people in on a human level. And yeah, you can buy some coffee too. You know, and maybe if you haven't had a bag of coffee at home, you probably should.
Exactly.
It's going to change the vibe. And you know, we always joke that, you know, we're here just to really sell bags of coffee. We'll sell cups too. But my goal is that everybody at Ames buys my bags.
I love it.
And we do a lot to try to make that happen. And the joke is always like, once I'm in your house, it's over. Once you get that first bag of beans in your house, you're going to be coming back to buy more. So, you know, there's a lot that we do on those touch points too.
That's awesome. And what a special thing. What do you think about this? I have a theory, and I think it's pretty proven in our space. Why are vintage 4x4s like so popular right now? They're very popular. And that there's this spectrum of this equal kind of pendulum that the more our technology gets cyber-based, like gets virtual, the more real world people are drawn to like these real experiences. Would you agree with that, or do you see a correlation? Because
I would agree with that. I think, you know, it's tough, right? I think for our demographic, where we are at, you know, as a 41-year-old man in 2020, the world has changed in ways that, like, when we look at our parents' generation, it changed in pretty profound ways.
Big time.
But in our generation, we haven't even really we can't understand yet the ways that it's changed. And our kids see the world a different way.
That's interesting.
And I think that there's the generational stuff is insane right now. And we, like, I'm a dinosaur. I know it, as I joke about, like, half my references make no sense. I can tell you about, like, dot matrix printers and rotary phones. And, like, I know all this. These were the toys that I had when I was a kid, right? And it's just a completely different world. And thankfully, clearly, at least one of us is doing a great job with this, right? Able to create a wonderful business and really this international brand to do this. And, you know, my focus is very small. You know, you're succeeding in a way where few other people in our generation, I think generationally, do succeed in that world. Because I think it just doesn't translate well. And I know I definitely roll and rip with some stuff that does not translate well.
Yeah.
You know, and I tend to employ folks of that generation and interact more with folks of that generation.
We talked about that.
So I think there's a generational thing, and there is some of that move back toward analog. I don't know if that explains. I think it's just you, Sean. I think the people love you, and whatever you're selling them, they're going to buy.
Yeah, maybe. But I see it in my kids as well. Like, I mean, for example, like, I think it's indicative, like the rise of the coffee shop. Like, my kids love, like my daughters and my son, they love hanging out in coffee shops, studying in coffee shops. They could study at home, but they like being where people are. And I think there's so much drive toward, like, because we're not digitally native people, but when you're, like, for example, my son, and I know this is just a one-off, but him and his buddies are drawn toward, like, let's go jump in the river. Let's go. Like, they don't really like, it's interesting. He'll watch YouTube videos quite a bit, but so he's 14, different than my 22-year-old. He's not really interested in social media. And I just wonder if, I don't know if that's just our family or me or whatever, or just him. Same with my daughters. If there's not going to be a swing toward, I think it's like you see it in, like, the tiny home movement, the van life movement, like, just things that are like
real life movement,
just real life stuff. And I'm happy that each one of us play a part in that, because buying a vintage 4x4 is a real life thing. You know, dads envision getting this truck and, like, taking their family camping and just going to, like, meetups and, like, just
what is the symbol of that to those folks?
That's right. And coffee is similar. Like, and I love what you're doing so much, that, like, you're about connecting people.
And it's really fun because I see all those points. I think the connection part is why I love to do it. Mm-hmm. But there's another part that in Ames, it's especially easy to want to build those connections.
Yeah, interesting.
So in a small town, in a small city, in a transient city, it's much easier than if you're in LA or Phoenix. And, you know, my mom, she always tells me, like, it doesn't matter where you are. You make this amazing community of people, you know, because we've done it a few times.
That's
now.
right.
As a trailing spouse, we've had to move for my wife's job.
Yep.
And wherever I end up, I know I'm going to make friends. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be painful to make that transition. It's always the first year has always been horrible. But after that, like, once I'm there, I never want to leave. Seriously.
Right.
And that's
cool.
You know,
I like
but
that.
every town, sometimes it's easier. And even in Phoenix, which is a famously, like, suburban, walled off, we made an amazing community we found. So I think there is something to that, but the small towns and the smaller cities are easier to live in. They're easier to make community.
I agree.
And Ames is easier. And it's just, I love visiting LA. I love Korean food, man.
Yeah.
I'm really into
Brazilian barbecue.
There's great things in big cities that we do not get, in Ames, Iowa. But at the same time, and on a day-to-day basis, like I get to walk to work. I have an 11-minute walk to work.
Yeah.
And like when we're done here, I'm going to walk home. And I'm going to go for a run in the park.
That's awesome.
And then I'm going to come home and make eggs just the way I want to. And this is something that I joke when I give talks to business groups or entrepreneurs where it's like, what's important to me? Eggs. I really like my eggs, like jalapenos, onions. I'm going to make it the way that I like it. There's not even a restaurant in town that's going to make it just the way I like it. And for me, it's really important to have that balance in life.
Yeah.
And I know for other entrepreneurs that I interact with, they think that that's a really special thing because you need to have that focus on what makes your life beyond just tolerable. Like you got to build your own life.
That's right.
And the way that another joke that I often make is like, this is my aquarium, right? It's you can build your own aquarium or terrarium and decorate the walls however you want. You might be stuck in Ames, Iowa.
Right.
But like make Ames, Iowa awesome. Make
I
it
love
for
that
you.
perspective.
And maybe if it makes it better for somebody else too, that's kind of a nice byproduct. But at the end of the day, it's a selfish desire. I'm just taking care of myself, trying to make myself happy.
That's good. Okay. So as we start great conversation, man. It's been really fun. Let's talk about some quick questions, quick answers.
All right.
Educate me, educate people. What are some of the distinctives of, and I don't even know the right way to ask the question, but French press, pour over, percolator. Brewing methods. Okay. Yeah. So like quick French press.
French press. If you like a thick cup, that's like heavier, more low-toned. I often use a musical analogy for a lot of these brewing methods. So in the musical analogy for French press is you've turned the treble way down and it's all bass with a little bit of mids. So you're getting all the low tones. If you like a brighter, brassier, more acidic cup, that is not for you.
Okay.
If you like the sweeter, rougher, heavier, low-tone bottom edge, maybe with some grit, that's your choice.
Okay, low tone. How about pour over?
Pour over is the other side of the spectrum. You're going to be kind of turning down the bass and cranking up the treble.
Okay, I love it. Do you have a preferred method here?
We do pour over. We do AeroPress. It's very full spectrum. I really love AeroPress.
What is it, AeroPress?
So AeroPress is almost like a coffee syringe. You could think of it like that. Like you're building your coffee like a French press in a syringe and then pushing it with pressure down through a filter, a paper filter. So it combines a few different brewing methods. If you haven't tried it,
AeroPress. So you can come into a coffee shop like this. Not all, I know.
Many do, though, have AeroPress. There's even some places that only serve AeroPress. It's a magical cup quality.
Okay.
And we sell them. They cost like literally $33 to get that kind of brewer. It's super cheap and easy.
So again, because that's not like on a menu. You have to have a conversation about coffee. So that's
and you can come in here and get the same coffee brewed 3 different ways. So the other big method that we use is Chemex. Okay, we also do any coffee can be ordered as a single origin espresso. So we have a hand grinder where we'll grind it and pull it as a shot. So you can come in and be like, oh, that anaerobic process, Brazil, tangerine fermentation, honey process that you just had. I want to taste that a couple different ways. Let me also have a shot of it and let's do it on an AeroPress. So what is, and then Hario. So we'll sell that to you as a flight for $7.
A flight. Dude, this is epic. This is the unknown stuff. This is like
but this is the coffee nerdery. And again, it exists only because I like to have that nerdery. And
so what do you call that again?
A flight.
A flight.
And it's $7, any 3 drinks on our menu. So you can come get a latte, taste a cortado, a cortadito. We do the Florida style.
Okay.
Whatever it might be. Or it's really fun with black coffee because you can taste the same coffee brewed different ways. And then really kind of helps you figure out which brewing methods you might like better.
So big encouragement. I had no idea that existed. So get into your local specialty coffee shop and just start asking questions. So French press, AeroPress, pour over. Is the Chemex a pour over?
It is. It's a bigger batch size. So it really changes. It's almost like it's not usually quite as bright. It's a little bit more even keel on the spectrum of the equalizer. The musical
Got my wife one for Christmas and she's been really enjoying
Chemex
it. She's
awesome.
A French press lady.
Chemex is a very different cup quality.
Yeah.
But they're good to have.
She likes it.
Yeah.
Okay, how about the old school percolator? Still a relevant thing.
People like it. It's really our parents' generation, right? Or like that type of generation that they're into it. The problem with the percolator is it boils the coffee. So you're getting maximum bitterness out of it. Okay. Even though it might be pretty sweet otherwise. And, I know churches still use them. A lot of places, you'll still see those giant coffee urns. A bun type brewer that brews right into like a press pod, vacuum pod kind of thing is going to be the ideal to serve big groups as opposed to one of those old school.
Which is like, is that quote unquote a drip coffee?
Could be, yeah. Some people call it drip. In the specialty coffee industry, we call it more batch brew. There's a couple different ways that those can be enhanced. Like if you go to Lockwood, they serve batch brew, but it's super nerdy batch brew. And they have like a whole cycle that they do to bloom the coffee before they brew on it. So, you can use some of this equipment in ways to really make it a much better
experience. Because like your Mr. Coffee machine at home, that has
potential to be good. And actually, when those came out, it was pretty revolutionary.
Yeah.
I think in like maybe the 60s or the 70s, those really got popular. And that was a big deal. The coffee got a lot better as compared to the percolator.
Would you call that batch or it was just
we
drip?
Call that, drip machine kind of brew. And, those get dirty. The big issue with them is they don't get up to temperature. And there's some that are SCA, Specialty Coffee Association certified. Okay. So if you like that kind of brewer, you can go online and research which ones those are. They're not necessarily that much more expensive, but they actually get the coffee to a proper temperature. Some of them even will have a bloom cycle in the electronics.
So great.
So you get into some of that nerdiness. So it really depends on what you like personally. And that's what I recommend my customers. People come in and say, what is the best brewing method? And it's like, I don't know. What do you like? We got to talk about what you like because you're the one that has to drink it.
That's awesome. How about hot, like, because like Chemex doesn't necessarily have a hot plate underneath it.
The heat is going away.
Right.
So
does that change?
As coffee ages, there's kind of acidity peaks and valleys. So it'll get more acidic after it's brewed. The best thing if you're going to brew coffee and try to keep it hot afterward is some kind of thermal insulated mug and not keep it heated up in any other way. Okay.
Really good points, man. This is good. Okay. Am I missing any primary brewing methods?
I think we're good on brewing methods.
Okay. What do you think about like Nescafe machines or like
Nespresso?
Nespresso.
Yeah. All the pod machines.
Yeah.
They really serve a purpose for some people. People who really love pods probably aren't going to like what I'm doing.
Okay.
It's just the same way that, like, I'm sure there's some large segments of the auto market have no interest in what you're doing.
Of course.
So, I see that.
But there are people that love pods.
I assume so because someone's buying them.
It's not just convenience. I kind of think of it as like just convenience in an office environment or whatever.
Yeah, and they're not good.
Okay.
They don't bring the coffee to temperature. They're not fresh. They're another big thing of why you should buy from a local roaster, whether it's me or somebody else, is freshness. So as a plug for what I do, we ship coffee daily all over the country, often roasted within about 24 hours or so of when we roast it, that it's out on priority mail on your doorstep. Different coffees have different life cycles, but like some of the washed centrals really fade after about 2 weeks. Natural processed coffees get to about a month.
Is this in bean form?
In whole bean form.
Whole bean.
That they're really at their peak. And you want to ideally buy the coffee, use it up, then get fresh coffee pretty quickly afterward.
And you don't want, how about buying pre-ground?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Okay.
And at a supermarket, you got to make sure you have a roast date, and that roast date should be within a couple weeks.
Okay, very helpful.
So if you go on my retail shelf, it's all like within a couple days usually. Sometimes we'll get to a week if we have an old bag that's hanging around.
Yep.
So it's pretty quick. And that's ideally any shop you go to, if it's a specialty coffee roaster, look for that roast date. That's really going to help up your game.
Yep. And we talk about this in a lot of our education process online is so that people are educated so they know what's best for them, because a lot of people don't know what you know as an expert. So I appreciate you educating people, and you should expect that, or don't be afraid to ask about that with your local coffee shop.
Yeah, they should know. And a lot of this nerdery exists. We're one of many. I always I'll float my boat and say we just got named yesterday best independent coffee shop in Iowa by 24/7 Wall Street.
I agree.
So that was a big deal for us. We've never gotten that kind of award before.
That's awesome.
So, but there's thousands of businesses that are like mine now.
Yes.
And they should be able to tell you about these things.
Cool. Okay. Now, so brewing methods. Thank you. Now I'm going to just blitz through some drinks, because this has been, I just discovered a Cortadito or something like that.
Yeah, Cortadito is awesome.
So latte.
Latte, steamed milk with espresso, usually a balance toward the milk.
Okay.
Less coffee flavor.
Okay. Cappuccino.
Cappuccino is like a short latte, but with foam on top. It's kind of the traditional cappuccino. Drier would be with less of that milk. Wetter would be maybe with no foam. And a lot of people come from the West Coast here and order a cappuccino at our shop, and we do more an 80s style Friends cappuccino with a mess of foam on top.
Okay.
And people are like, what the F, dude? I want a cappuccino like you served me in LA. Right. And then it's like, oh, you actually want a latte, because here we call that a latte with the art and everything.
Right.
So there's a little bit of nomenclature difference both regionally and shop by shop. And, so
I was wondering about that. Is a wet cappuccino pretty darn close to a latte?
Yes.
Okay. Cortado.
Cortado is a short latte. And again, every shop can have their own word. Another word for it is Gibraltar. So sometimes it's like a 1-to-1 ratio. So 2 ounces of espresso with 2 ounces of steamed milk. Ours tends to be a little bit more milk. We go almost close to a 1-to-2 ratio, but it's still served in a classic small glass cup.
Yes.
But it's generally a balance toward the coffee latte.
Okay. And Josh in Nashville, thank you for introducing me to the Cortado. It's good.
And then the Cortadito is the variation on that, which is really like you have in Florida in Cuban and Colombian restaurants, where you're having turbinado sugar frothed into the espresso and caramelized.
Those are good.
And so that it really gives this different sugar vibe, but it also kind of hits that classic coffee with sugar and milk taste that is very familiar and comforting to a lot of people.
Yeah. Do you like those?
I do. I won't drink it very often, but I do like them.
I like them too.
And for me, it's just transporting. It's like going to Florida. Having lived in Florida for 7 years, the coffee at its best should be a transporting experience. And when you have a coffee that tastes just like you close your eyes and you should be having maduros on your table, that's an amazing thing.
That's cool. Breve.
Breve is a latte on balance usually, but without milk, with half and half. So this is like the monster thick, creamy, like 400 calorie breakfast drink of your dreams that you never knew that you missed.
Americano?
Americano is really like espresso with hot water. Think of it like an espresso bar version of a black coffee.
Okay.
They can be very satisfying and very good. It's kind of an acquired taste thing. Often Americano is an afterthought for a lot of shops. We actually work very hard in our Americanos. A tell is if you see them, barista fill a cup for your Americano using water from an espresso machine. So that water is usually super softened and not necessarily appropriate to drink as a hot water drink. We use filtered water that is not that softened in our Americanos. And that's one of our shop things. The other thing with our Americanos, they're all the same price. I have this vibe of like, it's really sad to charge somebody just another $1 for a little bit more hot water, because we have all whole dollar pricing. We don't have any change in our pricing and the taxes baked in. So it's always like this vibe of like, can I really charge another whole $1 for this change?
And I've noticed you're like this Morning Bell is where I've kind of like tried my first Americano that was like super good. And I'm like, this is really good. I liked it. A 1-in-1?
1-in-1. So this is really a West Coast thing.
Okay.
But we love it. And I think a lot of places do it. The whole goal with this is you take an espresso shot and split it in two. So you have a single espresso and then you build a small latte with the other one. So it's kind of the balance is latte-like, but you're going to have about 1 ounce of espresso with 2 to 3 ounces of steamed milk.
Okay.
And that way you get to taste the espresso both ways. And often it's also served with the chaser sparkling water. And also our espresso is served with sparkling water just because. And we make sparkling water in-house from Ames Water that we keg.
Ames
and
has
people
great
love
water.
our sparkling water. Yeah, all the Ames water nerds are like, that's a thing.
That's a thing.
It's really interesting. Our water is tuned right out of the tap with the right TDS, the total dissolved solid balance that specialty coffee enthusiasts work in, like with all their filtration to achieve that balance nationwide. So we're really blessed in Ames. If you drive like 10 miles outside, you might have insanely hard or insanely soft, but Ames Water, the lab here works really well. And actually the folks who work in the Ames Water lab come in quite a bit.
Cool,
so they're some of our regulars. So we get into some water nerdery.
So a 1-in-1 is would be 2 cups?
It's like usually 3 cups.
3 cups.
The sparkling water is the third one.
Okay. I love it. Dirty chai?
Dirty chai is a chai latte, which would be, our version is tea using Littlewoods tea, and Littlewoods is our Ames tea blender, which is amazing, and they are known nationwide as they really have an amazing reputation online, and so they have some blends that they've made, and we've been involved with a little bit of that over the years, but we get a special blend from them, and then we actually brew the tea here. We don't use any chai concentrates. A lot of shops will use concentrates. We don't do any concentrates, so the tea is brewed to strength, and then we steam some milk of your choice along with chai syrup made by Lockwood Cafe using those same herbs from Littlewoods. Everything made in Ames, made by hand. And then, so that's kind of our chai latte. The dirty chai is throw a shot of espresso in there.
Okay. And interesting, my daughter is a chai lover. Like, she loves chai lattes and is like really discerning and like very critical. And like, there's I found through her that there's like tremendous variation.
Huge variations. And like my sister-in-law, she thinks our chai is not good because it's not sweet enough. And coming from New York and Jersey and Starbucks culture, you know, she's like, how can you sell a chai that's not sweet? And it's like, dude, I drink this. I can't even drink it. Too sweet, you know? It's like having dessert for me. You know, so there, and again, it's tuned to what we like. You know, it's like, we love you, Jaina. You know, we can put 2 shots of syrup in there if you want for your chai, but for everybody else, our standard is less sugar.
Okay. Black and white latte.
So we do this kind of crazy thing. So when we
so now we're getting into like some proprietary kind of,
or at least it's art, in Ames it's art shop stuff, but this exists other places. So white espresso, when we were in Phoenix, some customers came to me and they're like, dude, can you make us white espresso? And I was like, what is white espresso?
Okay.
And they said, you know, there's some shops in the West Coast in Washington State where we're from that they make this white espresso. It's a super light espresso. Can you make it for us? I said, sure, I'll try. Started putzing around. We worked with the coffee shop that was next to us. That was one of our wholesale customers on Grand Avenue. And we kind of came up with it. And then they started doing it. They started selling it. We kind of continued to refine and dial in the roasting. But basically, it's a super lightly roasted espresso to the point where it's like not really roasted, but not really green. And we have a whole separate process of how we grind that coffee and how we put it through our espresso machine. It's espresso in name only, so it doesn't actually pressurize all that much, but it's a way that we can get a little more extraction from this very lightly roasted coffee that's really hard to extract. But the flavor is very nutty, mild, tea-like, mung bean. It's kind of this other flavor that doesn't taste like roasted coffee, but it's got, because it's so lightly roasted, more antioxidants, more caffeine.
Yes.
So we serve this white espresso as a thing. And I know we've always been on the short list of places in the country that you could get it, even when we were in Phoenix, but now I think we're the only one in the Midwest.
So you can get a shot of white espresso.
You can get a shot.
Okay.
The black and white latte is a latte with a regular shot of espresso in there, along with a double shot of the white. And it's really this, you know, and we only pull it as doubles. But it's really this, we call it full spectrum, again, with a musical analogy, because it fills in all these other gaps where a latte, you're not going to taste it. And it's got this kind of incredible caffeine content. So I can't drink the white espresso. I'm very sensitive to caffeine. So if I even have one in the afternoon, I am not sleeping. You know, it gets me. And, you know, we have some fun special drinks that we make out of it too.
Cool, man.
There's a dude named Dan who comes in all the time. That's one of our special customers, that he has his own drink on the menu called the Dan, which is the nitro of the moment, which at the moment is a barrel-aged cold brew. You know, the cold brew of the moment with a double shot of white espresso and milk and cayenne in a pint glass. So he will get that. He might drink 1 or 2 of those when he comes in. So we have some fun drinks that we make with.
Okay, that's awesome. And then how about the Austin?
So the Austin is named for our barista Austin. He created this drink. And it uses ginger powder that's steamed into the milk, and then molasses is stirred into the espresso. So it's kind of like a ginger molasses latte with no sugar, or very little sugar. Sometimes they'll put a little brown sugar, I think, in there too. But it's very comforting. It's almost like a ginger molasses cookie.
And cool on you to let like your baristas
you know, many
think
of them,
about those
it's
things.
Both baristas and customers that they have their special things, and they kind of over time get incorporated into the menu.
Well, and I'm sure there's more coffee stuff we can talk about.
Unlimited nerdery, Sean.
Let's schedule another show. This was a great conversation about just kind of more general entrepreneurship, business. We can geek out about some of that kind of stuff. But thank you so much for being on the show.
Sure.
If you are in Ames and you come to visit New Legend, we'll strongly...
And if you come to Ames and visit New Legend, Sean will pay for all the drinks in my shop.
That's right. Done deal, man.
Look at that.
Thanks. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks again, man.